You have exactly 600 seconds. That's it. If you're caught outside in Yakutsk, Siberia, without the right gear, that is the literal window of time before your body begins to shut down. We are standing in the coldest inhabited city on the face of the earth, a place where cold isn't just a temperature, it's a predator. At minus 70 degrees, your breath doesn't just fog up, it crystallizes into ice shards that can lacerate your throat if you breathe too fast. This isn't a vacation, it's a high-stakes battle against physics. The first thing you notice when you touch down in Yakutsk isn't the snow, it's the silence. At these temperatures, sound travels differently through the hyperdense frozen air, but that silence is deadly. In the United States, we complain when the mercury hits zero. Here, zero is a heat wave. When it drops to minus 60, the very chemistry of life changes. Your phone battery? Dead in 45 seconds. Your skin? It turns to a brittle, waxy texture that can snap like parchment paper. But the real insanity starts with the machines. In a world where engines are the only thing keeping you from freezing to death, the rule is simple. Never turn it off. If you walk through the streets of Yakutsk in January, you'll see thousands of ghost cars, empty vehicles idling in parking lots, exhaling thick plumes of gray exhaust 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you're brave, or crazy enough to turn that key off, the oil in your engine block will turn into a solid brick of black ice. Your car becomes a multi-thousand-dollar paperweight until the month of May. Some locals use the Natasha, a massive 50-pound insulated quilt that wraps the car like a sleeping bag. But even then, the cold finds a way. It always finds a way. And then there's the market of ice. Imagine a place where fresh means frozen solid 3 seconds after it was caught. At the Central Fish Market, there are no freezers because the entire planet is a freezer. Giant Siberian fish are stacked upright in crates like cordwood. You don't buy a pound of fillets, you buy a 3-foot-long ice spear of a fish. The vendors? They are the toughest humans you will ever meet. They stand on thick slabs of reindeer hide for 10 hours a day. If they stood on the concrete, the heat would be sucked out of their boots so fast they'd lose their toes before lunch. This is life at the edge of the abyss, where a single mistake is a permanent one, the hollow city, engineering on an ice monster. What if I told you that this entire city, every skyscraper, every school, every hospital, is floating on a ticking time bomb? Beneath the feet of 300,000 people lies the Permafrost, a 1,000-foot-deep block of ancient ice that has stayed frozen since the last ice age. But there's a catch. If that ice ever melts, the entire city of Yakutsk doesn't just flood. No bien mat va long dut. This is the story of how humans built a metropolis on a foundation that's trying to swallow it whole. In most of the world, we build houses to keep the cold out. In Yakutsk, they build houses to keep the heat in, but with a terrifying twist. If you build a standard American home here, your own body heat and the warmth from your living room will seep into the ground. That heat melts the permafrost, turning the solid-as-rock ice into a chaotic slurry of mud. Within a year, your house would tilt, crack, and eventually sink into the abyss. The solution? The stilts of Siberia. Every major structure in Yakutsk is raised 6 to 10 feet off the ground on massive concrete pillars. It looks like a city on crutches. This gap allows the brutal Siberian winds to howl underneath the buildings, ensuring the ground stays at a constant, bone-chilling freeze. If you look down while walking, you aren't looking at dirt. You're looking at a prehistoric glacier that's holding up a civilization. But the engineering madness doesn't stop at the foundations. Have you ever noticed the giant silver snakes running along the streets? In any other city, water and gas pipes are buried deep underground to protect them. Try that in Yakutsk, and the heaving of the freezing earth will snap a steel pipe like a toothpick. Instead, the city's lifeblood, hot water for heating, is pumped through miles of insulated above-ground pipes. It looks like a scene from a steampunk movie. These pipes are the city's literal umbilical cord. If the central heating plant fails for even a few hours, the water inside these pipes will expand as it freezes, exploding the entire system and leaving 300,000 people defenseless against the -60-degree night. Why stay here? Why fight a war against a climate that clearly doesn't want you there? Because Yakutsk is the diamond vault of the world. The same frozen ground that makes building a house a nightmare is packed with billions of dollars in gemstones. They aren't just surviving the cold, they are mining the treasures of the deep freeze. But as we're about to see, the price of that wealth isn't paid in money. It's paid in the sheer raw willpower it takes to wake up every morning in a world that's 100 degrees below your body temperature. The biology of the deep freeze. What happens to your blood? We've talked about the cars and the buildings, but let's get personal. What actually happens to a human body when you step into a -60-degree void? Your body isn't designed for this. Within seconds, your biology enters a state of high-alert triage. This is the science of how your heart, your lungs, and your very blood transform just to keep your brain from flickering out like a dying candle. The moment you inhale in Yakutsk, you feel a sharp, stinging sensation in your chest. That's not just a feeling. It's the moisture in your bronchial tubes flash freezing. To prevent your lungs from literally shattering, your body forced a massive surge of blood to your core. This is called peripheral vasoconstriction. Your fingers and toes, your body has already decided they are expendable. It pulls the heat away from your extremities to protect your vital organs. In Yakutsk, frostbite isn't a possibility. It's an inevitability for the unprepared. But the real magic is in the local adaptation. Scientists have found that people who have lived here for generations have a higher basal metabolic rate. Their internal furnace burns hotter than yours or mine. And then there's the diet. In the US, we're told to eat salads and lean proteins. In Siberia, that diet will get you killed. You need fat, massive amounts of it. We're talking about kobiliatina, horse meat, and munuk, frozen fish fat. This high-density lipid intake creates a thermal barrier from the inside out. When you see a local walking calmly through a frozen fog that would make a polar bear shiver, remember, their blood is literally thick with the fuel needed to fight the frost. The diamond vault, the wealth buried in ice. Why would anyone endure this? Why build a city in a place that feels like the surface of Mars? The answer is buried deep beneath the permafrost in a high-security world most people will never see. We are sitting on top of the world's diamond vault. Yakutia isn't just a frozen wasteland. Na la movang, mo kim kung chidya hang yin ti do la dang chaduk dantuk. Imagine a hole so big it creates its own weather patterns. The Mir mine, not far from Yakutsk, is a gaping maw in the earth, over 1,700 feet deep. It's so massive that helicopters are banned from flying over it, because the downward air currents could suck them straight into the abyss. This region produces roughly 25% of the entire world's diamonds. If you're wearing a diamond ring right now, there is a 1 in 4 chance it was pulled from this frozen hellscape. But mining here is a nightmare. The ground is as hard as tempered steel. Traditional drills snap like toothpicks. To get to the gems, engineers have to use massive jet engines to blast heat at the earth, or use specialized explosives that can withstand the cold. It's a multi-billion-dollar chess match against nature. The wealth generated here is the only reason Yakutsk exists. It funds the heated buses, the university, and the hyper-complex infrastructure. In Siberia, diamonds aren't just jewelry. They are the literal currency of survival. Without them, this city would be a ghost town in a single winter, the ghosts of the Gulag, a dark heritage. But there is a darker side to this ice. Before the diamonds, before the heated cafes and the TikTok influencers, Yakutsk was known by a different, more terrifying name, the Land of Death. This city wasn't just built on ice, it was built on the history of the Gulag, the most brutal prison system in human history. Every road you drive on here has a story that will chill you deeper than the wind ever could. The infamous Road of Bones, the Kolyma Highway, connects Yakutsk to the coast. It earned its name because the thousands of prisoners who died building it were simply buried into the roadbed. The permafrost preserved them. You are literally driving over a graveyard of the Soviet era. For decades, the cold wasn't a challenge to be overcome. It was a weapon used by the state. This dark history has forged a specific type of person in Yakutsk. There is a stoicism here, a Siberian toughness that you won't find anywhere else. They don't complain about the weather because their ancestors survived far worse under the shadow of the labor camps. When you talk to the elders, you realize that the cold is a part of their DNA. It's a reminder of what the human spirit can endure when it has no other choice. The city today is vibrant and modern, but the ghosts of the past are still there, frozen forever in the ground beneath the neon lights.